Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephania Cox. Here are today's top stories. A congressman is calling on President Biden to end abortion at the annual March for Life rally in D.C. This after the president restored U.S. funding for international nonprofits that provide abortion services. The Texas governor says the state is prepared to fight back against President Biden's actions targeting oil and gas. He's also directing the state's industries to sue the administration. Biden faces scrutiny for signing a record number of executive orders in a short time. We take a closer look at the orders to see just how many of them will impact Americans' daily lives. The DOJ charges a man for conspiring to interfere with the 2016 election. His weapon of choice? Internet memes. We speak to a legal expert on the possible implications for free speech and elections. And the Texas Attorney General is taking action. He announced plans to investigate several key players in the GameStop Robinhood incident. The annual March for Life rally is taking place in Washington, D.C. today. It's the largest annual pro-life event in the country. But this year, the march was limited in size and part of the event was held virtually.
Because of the CCP virus pandemic, the annual march in the nation's capital is smaller than in years past. Thousands marched through the streets of D.C. to the U.S. Supreme Court. At the same time, event organizers and speakers shared abortion statistics during the virtual live stream.
In the past 4 decades, over 1.5 billion children have been killed worldwide by the violence of abortion. In our nation alone, since 1973, in the last 48 years, over 62 million boys and girls, sons and daughters, have been killed.
On Thursday, President Biden restored U.S. funding for international nonprofits that provide abortion-related services. A congressman speaking at the event called on the current administration to respect the sanctity of life.
Mr. President, the dream of justice for all cannot be achieved if a whole segment of society is legally ignored and discriminated against and disenfranchised against because of where they live, in their mother's wombs, and how small and defenseless they are. We know you understand this. You get it, or at least you once did. Years ago, you wrote a constituent explaining that a law against funding for abortion would, quote, protect both the woman and her unborn child.
48 years ago, on January 22, 1973, the Supreme Court decision of Roe v. Wade opened the doors to abortion nationwide. Since then, the pro-life movement has been fighting to overturn the decision. This Friday marks the 48th annual March for Life rally.
According to South Carolina's Department of Health, 45% of abortions in 2019 were performed in the first 6 weeks of pregnancy. In a 30-13 decision, South Carolina's Senate pushed through the Fetal Heartbeat Protection from Abortion Act. This bill outlaws abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected, which usually happens at around 6 to 8 weeks. Some exceptions are if pregnancy is the result of rape or incest, if the fetus has issues and would not survive outside the womb, or the mother's life is in danger. The bill now is going to the House of Representatives, and the Republican majority is expected to approve it. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster said he would sign the bill into law if it passes in the House and arrives at his desk. And the governor of Texas is opposing President Biden's actions against the oil and gas industry, and he's urging the state's industries to sue the administration. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed an executive order on Thursday directing all state agencies to sue the Biden administration for any actions that threaten the state's energy industry.
Texas is going to protect the oil and gas industry from any type of hostile attack launched from Washington, D.C.
He calls President Biden's embrace of the Green New Deal a job killer in Texas and says it takes a wrecking ball to the energy independence that Texas has been able to provide to the U.S. Abbott's order comes after a series of executive actions taken by the president in the name of fighting climate change, including revoking the permit for the Keystone XL pipeline, rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, and halting new oil and gas leases on federal land and waters. On Wednesday, Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry argued that Biden wants to make sure that workers in the energy industry have better job choices. He gave the example of being a solar power technician instead of being a miner.
So what President Biden wants to do is make sure those folks have better choices, that they have alternatives, that they can be the people who go to work to make the solar panels.
Kerry said building solar panels in the U.S. will be a focus of Biden's Build Back Better agenda. Texas Senator Ted Cruz responded to Kerry's comments on Twitter, accusing him of being out of touch. A Senate candidate and Air Force pilot pointed out solar panels and windmills are built in China using fossil fuels and shipped to the U.S. using fossil fuels. The Texas governor said his order will help ensure that the federal government cannot take away the livelihoods of Texans who work hard to provide needed energy for their state and country. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell calls Biden's actions on energy policy the wrong prescription. He says they hurt American jobs and U.S. national security.
Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell laying heavy criticism on Biden's swift actions on energy policy.
In 1 week, he signed more than 30 unilateral actions, and working Americans are getting short shrift.
McConnell says stopping work on the Keystone Pipeline will impact 11,000 American workers, including 8,000 union workers.
There's nothing green about a tsunami of pink slips for American workers or carting Canadian crude around in trucks and trains instead of a pipeline.
McConnell also criticizing actions on climate change, including having the U.S. rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. He says Biden's administration is willfully throwing people out of work, reducing domestic energy security, raising costs and prices for working families, all for no meaningful impact on global temperatures. McConnell says China and Russia must be thrilled about this. Next, turning to the halt to oil and natural gas development on public lands, McConnell says the move instantly cuts domestic oil production by 1/5 and slashes U.S. energy independence. He said in 2019, the U.S. ran an energy surplus for the first time since the 1950s.
This piecemeal Green New Deal is the wrong prescription. Wrong for the environment, wrong for national security, and most of all, for the working Americans who will soon be formally working Americans if this keeps up.
The Republican senator says that the last 4 years proved something, that growing prosperity, reducing emissions, and expanding domestic energy can all be done at the same time.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says Biden has no plans to meet with GOP senators. That's after 24 of them sent him a letter asking to discuss concerns over recent executive orders targeting the energy sector. And President Biden has signed off on more executive orders in these first 9 days than any former president has reached within their first 2 months in office. The administration has faced a few lawsuits for these orders, and some have accused Biden of acting beyond his authority. NTD's Melina Weisskopf brings us a closer look at these executive orders and what they mean for Americans.
President Biden has signed around 40 executive orders in his first 9 days in office. Compare that with former Presidents Trump and Obama's records, it looks like Biden hit the ground running hard. Even Roosevelt, who has signed the most executive orders in history, didn't start off as aggressively as Biden. This has made some feel uneasy about how he will lead during his time in office. But how much will his orders impact Americans' daily lives?
People think of executive orders as an alternative way to legislate, but really what they're about is that the president generally has significant discretion in deciding how to enforce particular statutes, which ones to stress. There's always going to be a desire in the incoming party to say, well, the president before us was incompetent or lax or not doing enough.
A majority of the orders have addressed the virus response. But Gutzman says most of these orders have been about show rather than changing course.
I can't identify any of them that really represents to me a shift in direction, a real change in the way that the Trump administration has been handling the COVID problem, except, of course, there is more of a tendency in the Biden administration than there was in the Trump administration to want to federalize things.
But some other executive orders do have a substantial impact on Americans, like the 100-day deportation freeze, which was challenged in court and temporarily blocked by a federal judge.
This, I think, went beyond simple executive discretion all the way to making a change in policy, essentially policy that Congress had adopted through the legislative process. So,
another substantial order that directly impacts Americans is Biden's ban on energy leasing, which has also been challenged in court. Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
An update on the Crossfire hurricane investigation. An FBI lawyer is not sentenced to prison after pleading guilty to falsifying a document. The document led to a major error in an application to spy on a Trump campaign advisor. A federal judge sentenced former FBI lawyer Kevin Clinesmith to a year of probation instead. The judge agreed with the defense team, who argued Clinesmith did not intend to lie when he forged an email from a CIA liaison. An email that described Carter Page as having given information to the agency. The prosecution argued for a prison sentence. They cited Trump's campaign advisor and lawyer, who were sent to prison for what they called a less serious offense. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is stepping up. In the wake of the GameStop and Robinhood incident, Paxton announced he'll be launching an investigation. The probe will look into Robinhood, Discord, Citadel, and other groups over their block on allowing users to trade certain stocks. Paxton calls for these companies to cooperate with the investigation and be transparent, calling them the group that, quote, rigged our free market for the benefit of Wall Street elites, end quote. And despite the outcry against mail-in ballots after the controversy surrounding the November 3rd election, Democratic lawmakers want to expand voting by mail. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
Senator Ron Wyden and Representative Earl Blumenauer on Thursday introduced a bill named the Vote at Home Act. The bill seeks to massively expand vote-at-home ballot access. The two lawmakers, both Democrats from Oregon, said in a press release that the legislation is meant to fight voter suppression. The move stands in stark contrast to a bill introduced by Republicans several weeks ago. The bill, meant to strengthen election integrity, seeks to tighten voter registration verification and narrow rules for accepting mail-in ballots. Critics of expanding vote by mail warn of increased risk of voter fraud, allegations of which were at the forefront of this year's election. The Democrats' Vote at Home Act stipulates that all registered voters would receive ballots in the mail weeks before Election Day to allow them time to research candidates and issues before the election, as well as grant all registered voters the ability to cast their ballots by mail or at ballot drop boxes and automatically register voters. Meanwhile, the House Republican bill called Save Democracy Act seeks to create protections against election irregularities and voter fraud, including preventing automatic voter registration for federal elections, prohibiting states from sending out unrequested absentee ballots, and calls for a ban on using public ballot collection boxes. Republican Representative Jim Banks said in a press statement, this bill will restore the public's trust that their vote is counted and their voice is heard. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
The Maricopa County Board of Supervisors says it wants to instill confidence in the public over the 2020 election. It's approved a forensic audit of the county's election equipment.
Maricopa County in Arizona will carry out a full forensic audit of its voting systems. It's following concerns raised by constituents about the integrity of the November 2020 election. The chairman of the County Board of Supervisors addressed these concerns.
Regardless of how we got where we are today, there are a number of people now that have serious doubts about our election process, and people that I care about.
Supervisor Bill Gates said concerns largely feature around the county's tabulation equipment.
It's clear that there are still questions out in the community. And so, and particularly with respect to the machines, we've heard a lot of talk about the machines. And so that's why I'm thrilled that this audit is going to be focusing on the machines themselves.
The board plans to hire 2 independent companies to conduct the audit. It will include a software, hardware, and financial review of voting systems. It'll test whether the machines sent or received information over the internet and will also check the accuracy of the vote counting equipment. The county government published a list of steps previously taken to ensure election security leading up to and beyond November 3rd. Sellers said the county's elections were administered with integrity throughout 2020. The Republican-dominated board voted unanimously in favor of the audit.
The Department of Justice charged an individual for his internet memes. He's accused of conspiring to interfere with the 2016 election through his memes. NTD's Christina Kim speaks to a legal expert on this case.
Social media influencer Douglas Mackey, also known as Ricky Vaughn, is accused of conspiring with others to interfere with people's right to vote. That's according to the DOJ, who arrested Mackey in his Florida home on Wednesday. In 2016, Mackey posted a series of internet memes to allegedly spread disinformation about the voting process. One image on his Twitter urged voters to avoid the line and vote from home by texting their votes to a number provided. The complaint says almost 5,000 different phone numbers responded to the image, but it's not known whether or not those people cast a real vote, too. Calling Mackey's actions reprehensible, Heritage Foundation's legal fellow Zach Smith explained the task ahead for the government.
Basically, the government has to prove that two or more people were involved in this conspiracy, that they intended to deprive someone of a federal right, and that the federal right was clearly established. In this case, it would be their right to vote.
Smith says because Mackey was charged of conspiracy, he doesn't actually have to be guilty of committing the actual crime.
Prosecutors charged it in this way because, you don't have to prove an actual deprivation of the federal right. You just have to prove a conspiracy and an intent to deprive someone of their federal right.
Because Mackey took actual steps to subvert voters from placing legitimate votes, he may not be protected by First Amendment claims. But Smith maintains that in general, broader protections of free speech is better for society.
But it is just the interesting legal questions of, potential misapplications of this statute in the future, in light of First Amendment concerns.
For now, it's unclear how this charge will play out and what, if any, impact it may have on the future of free speech in the age of internet memes. If convicted, Mackey could face up to 10 years in prison. Christina Kim, NTD News.
President Biden's pick for senior Asia policy official helped found a nonprofit to promote Chinese language learning. But the group is now suspected to be heavily influenced by the CCP's propaganda agency.
Questions arise over President Joe Biden's incoming Asia policy czar, Kurt Campbell. He reportedly served as a top executive at a nonprofit suspected to be a front for Chinese Communist Party influence campaigns. That's according to an article by the Washington Free Beacon. The group is also called the U.S.-China Strong Foundation. Its entire website has since been taken down, but an archived website page lists Campbell as a vice chairman of the foundation. According to a Politico column he wrote in 2013, he launched the foundation as an independent nonprofit to help Americans to go to China and learn Chinese just weeks after Campbell left his position in the State Department under Obama. Part of the group's initial funding came from Chinese-American businesswoman Florence Fong. Fong is listed as the honorary president of the San Francisco chapter of the National Association for China's Peaceful Unification. The State Department says the group is part of the CCP's United Front Work Department, the Chinese regime's overseas propaganda agency. People working for the United Front often take advantage of economic and cultural exchanges to make connections with Western politicians, as well as academic and business leaders. The organization aims to influence the West-China policy. That's to make it more favorable toward the regime's strategic interests. Other leadership members of the U.S.-China Strong Foundation include Ronnie Chan. Chan is a U.S. citizen who served as an advisor for the Chinese regime's State Council. He's also a former Hong Kong official and head of a registered foreign agent group of the Chinese regime. The foundation's funding sources include Chinese conglomerate Wanxiang. The Chinese company gained public traction in recent years for its hundreds of millions of dollars of 2012 investment in a small energy firm, which was a client of President Biden's son Hunter at the time. A 2019 Financial Times report highlighted the company in an article titled Hunter Biden's Web of Interests. The U.S.-China Strong Foundation has touted the Chinese regime and its projects. It appeared to celebrate the founding of the Chinese military in a 2017 Twitter post, urging followers to read about an address by Communist leader Xi Jinping. The group had also partnered with China's Confucius Institutes, an organization promoted as a language and cultural exchange between schools in China and overseas. The State Department labeled it as a foreign mission last summer, saying it promotes Beijing's propaganda and exports censorship to U.S. campuses. An expert told the Washington Free Beacon that the U.S.-China Strong Foundation could be very heavily influenced by the CCP, so much so that it may be virtually the same as a front group.
Up ahead, indoor dining could make a comeback for Valentine's Day in New York City. That's as New York's governor responds to a controversial report from the Attorney General on nursing home deaths. And a Silicon Valley tech executive is throwing his name in the hat for the race to be California's next governor. The effort to recall Governor Newsom is nearing a critical threshold.
Trends may be fleeting, but values are timeless. We now bring you this new clothing brand with classic design and luxurious comfort. It's our way of sharing hope and inspiration from the world of Shenyun. We bring you Shenyun Dancer. Wear it with honor.
Someone has to find the way to build the Great Dome. Completely new, completely original.
Eating out in New York City takes money and endurance in this weather. But the governor says he'll give indoor dining the go-ahead on Valentine's Day. NTD's Miguel Moreno has that and more on the virus.
There's good news for restaurant owners and their customers who aren't looking to eat in the cold. Governor Andrew Cuomo is offering them a token of love, so to speak, on Valentine's Day. Indoor dining.
New York City restaurants, on our current trajectory, we can reopen indoor dining at 25% on Valentine's Day. The restaurants want a period of time so they can notify workers, they can get up to speed for indoor dining, order supplies, etc.
Cuomo said this is because the virus trends have fallen overall. State data shows that the positivity rate fell to 4.9% since early January 7.1. But the good news didn't stop reporters from asking tough questions about a report published by Attorney General Letitia James. She estimates that the Cuomo administration undercounted the number of nursing home residents who died of COVID-19 by as much as 50%. A government watchdog and lawmakers have asked and sued the governor for an official number of residents who died in hospitals. The health department's commissioner says they're working on it.
When I saw the Attorney General report, decided that we need to finish that up quickly and get these numbers out in real time.
Governor Cuomo said it doesn't matter where they died and brushed off criticisms made against him for forcing nursing homes to take in COVID-19 patients if they could.
But who cares? 33, 28, died in a hospital, died in a nursing home. They died.
Now zooming out to the national level, every mutation of the virus you've probably heard of has been detected in the U.S. This includes the British, Brazilian, and now South African variant. The White House's COVID-19 response team went over the first two cases of a South African variant found in South Carolina. They say the two who were infected don't have any travel history. Dr. Fauci says the mutation, and I quote, seems to have a very good fitness for spread.
So whether or not that's going to ultimately take over in the sense of being dominant is unclear by now. The projection that is made with regard to the UK is that probably by the end of March, the beginning of April, it actually will become more dominant in this country.
As for vaccines, Johnson & Johnson released the results of their one-shot vaccine. In the U.S., it was 72% effective, but that number fell in Latin America and South Africa. And here are some weekly trends. According to the CDC, the 7-day average of virus deaths in the U.S. went up about 7% from the 21st of January to the 27th. But there were some good trends, like new hospital admissions, with the virus having fallen 14%. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Candidates running for New York City mayor are talking about how to tackle questions around education. Each speaker laid out their plans to address a wide range of issues.
Candidates hoping for a shot as New York City's next mayor tackle issues surrounding education. The city's education system is in crisis. Pandemic-induced school closures setting young minds back by months. Brooklyn's borough president Eric Adams says children need to catch up.
That means extended school hours. That means weekends. That means also we should not have had last summer off when we knew we already had a time deficit. We should have used those opportunities to catch up. And so the immediate to deal with the trauma children are experiencing, do the lost in education to get them caught up immediately.
The candidates also touched on other issues. New York City's education panel voted down a contract to administer the gifted and talented admissions exam. Meanwhile, new data reveals enrollment in city public schools has fallen by over 40,000 students since last year. Tech entrepreneur Andrew Yang says the end of the gifted and talented screening and the drop in enrollments are directly related.
We cannot get rid of the G&T screening without a concrete alternative. And in the absence of that concrete alternative, we should have kept it. And then we can look at broadening it so that more families enjoy some of these enrichment programs that reflect the composition of our city, but getting rid of it was a mistake.
Former Commissioner of New York City's Department of Sanitation, Catherine Garcia, says the drop in the number of students would mean a drop in funding, and it doesn't necessarily mean the city will have more money to spare.
There isn't great big savings that comes with losing kids because you're also losing the revenue that supports them going forward. But we need also to be focused on the fact that we are going to have to catch up a whole year of education. And that is going to require resources and remediation and push in of extra teachers to ensure that we are getting kids up to grade level when they return to their buildings.
The candidates will have another chance to share their ideas for New York City schools on Sunday. Don Tran, NTD News, New York.
A tech executive joins the push to recall California's governor. That's as more bids for the job get announced. NTD's Eileen Eng has more on the story.
Venture capitalist Chamath Palihapitiya declared his bid for California governor. The former Facebook executive said in a tweet this week, "It's on, recall Gavin Newsom." His platform includes cutting taxes to 0%, giving teachers a minimum salary of $70,000, and giving $2,000 for every new child born in the state. As the campaign to recall the governor gathers more signatures, it's attracting more and more supporters, including those who previously supported Newsom. Another tech investor who supported Newsom's campaign for governor told Bloomberg on Tuesday he supports Palihapitiya, who he described as a centrist Democrat. Kevin Faulconer, the former Republican mayor of San Diego, is also mulling a bid. He signed the recall petition shortly after the new year. Recall Gavin 2020 now has over 1.2 million signatures. It needs 1.5 million signatures to trigger a recall election by March. Eileen Eng, NTD News, California.
If you're like me, and I think it's actually most of us, then you're getting really fed up with the nonsense going on inside the banking system. I mean, we've worked hard our entire lives to retire comfortably. We just recovered from the crash of 2008, and it seems like it's about to happen all over again. Look at the too-big-to-fail banks. They're only getting bigger as the Fed hands them trillions of dollars daily, while simple folks like you and me, we're only getting the short end of the stick. That's why I'm glad I found this book called The Bank Failure Survival Guide. Give us a call, and we'll send you a free copy with no obligations whatsoever. Just one American to another, telling you about some options that you might not have considered. Call 866-239-2619 today for your free copy of The Bank Failure Survival Guide. That's 239-2619.
California's Department of Motor Vehicles grants a Chinese internet giant a new permit. It gives the company permission to test self-driving vehicles in a California county. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has the details.
Chinese internet search giant Baidu has been granted a permit by the California Department of Motor Vehicles used to test driverless vehicles. The company announced the news on Thursday. It allows Baidu to test autonomous vehicles without a safety driver on certain public roads within Sunnyvale and Santa Clara County. So far, 6 companies have been approved for similar permits. 4 of them are based in the U.S. 2 are headquartered in China, the other called AutoX. Nearly 60 companies have permits to test autonomous vehicles with safety drivers in the state. Last year, Baidu received permission to run similar tests in 2 Chinese cities, including Beijing. The Baidu search engine is one of almost 60 Chinese-made apps recently banned in India. The country's government cites concerns over data security and privacy risks. Hong Kong's government is announcing new plans to crack down on prepaid cell phone use. The new rule would require people to register their identity when buying pay-as-you-go mobile phone SIM cards. Officials say the move is needed to help tackle a range of serious crimes, from phone scams to bombings. Under the proposal, people buying prepaid SIM cards would be required to register their name, Hong Kong ID card or passport number, and their date of birth. The plan prompted strong opposition from Hong Kong's pro-democracy forces. They say the move would increase the risk of government abuse of power and worsen lacking protection of public privacy. That's because in emergency situations, law enforcement can already bypass the courts to obtain information from telecom providers. At present, there are more than 20 million mobile phone cards in Hong Kong. More than half of them are anonymous. Amid pro-democracy movements in recent years, many protesters bought anonymous SIM cards to communicate with each other in attempts of being avoided or monitored or censored.
A mother and son from a district in Beijing are forced into homelessness after authorities forcibly tore down their home. The neighborhood has been plagued by similar demolitions for months. NTD's Xiong Bin has more.
One Beijing resident says authorities forcibly demolished his house earlier this month. The move left Li Qiang and his mother homeless in the middle of winter. Beijing authorities have been tearing down parts of the city's Changping district since November 2020, namely a neighborhood called the Jiuhua Agricultural Science Demonstration Park. Locals report seeing security guards wearing black clothes breaking into the area, which they say are sent by authorities. In efforts to force residents out of their homes, officials cut off the flow of water, electricity, and gas to the neighborhood. After living without utilities for 2 months, Li and his mother's house was demolished last week. With nowhere else to go, the mother and son slept outside the front of the local town hall, protesting what Li calls authorities' robbery. In other words, their decision to void their 20-year-old lease agreement. In China, aspiring homeowners must first get permission from authorities to lease land. So while they may own their home, the regime owns the land it's built on. These lease agreements only last for a certain amount of time. A video shot the day after the demolition explained why Li and his mother chose the town hall for their protest. The clip was reportedly shot by another neighborhood resident.
Why are they here? Because 20 years ago they signed a contract on the 5th floor of the Xiaotangshan Town Hall. The contract was a 50-year land lease, so they're fighting for justice after their house was demolished and stolen. They've been fighting in the neighborhood for 60 days after power and water were cut off. At one point in the house, the temperature inside the house dropped to -4 degrees Fahrenheit. The house was freezing, but they stayed there. The house was demolished yesterday. They don't have a place to stay. Now they found a place to take shelter in front of the town hall.
When security guards came to evict Lee and his mother, they first broke into the house, then beat, scolded, and forced them out of the house. The building was then torn down.
This is my only house. They didn't show any legal documents to demolish my house. I just got up in the morning, saw 40 to 50 people coming during the severe pandemic situation. They detained us illegally by force, took us out of the house. The security guards surrounded us with shields and kept us from moving.
The neighborhood was built in 1998. Before the teardowns, it was home to about 300 households with more than 2,100 residents. Forced demolition is a common practice in China. Authorities often decide to take back the land in order to sell or develop it for more profitable projects. Residents usually receive little to no compensation. Reporting by Xiangbing, NTD News.
Coming up, 2 California women sue Subway. They say one of the ingredients isn't quite what the restaurant says it is. That and more after the break.
마루 유치원 폐쇄 명령서입니다.
전 폐쇄 명령 받아들일 수 없습니다.
유치원 폐쇄 명령이라.
좀 들어간 건 어떻게 됐어? 도저히 방법이 없대?
정일도 사장님을 대신해서 제가 대신 말씀드리면 안 되겠습니까?
Two women in California think something is fishy about the tuna at Subway restaurants. They filed a lawsuit claiming that the chain's tuna is not actual tuna. In the complaint, they say the fish is marketed as a premium product Subway uses in its sandwiches and wraps. But the women say independent tests couldn't find any tuna in it. Instead, they say testing found, quote, a mixture of various concoctions. We reached out to Subway and their spokesperson says there's simply no truth to the allegation, and that its tuna is not only real, it's even caught in the wild. This isn't the first time Subway has faced a lawsuit over its sandwiches. Last year, an Irish court ruled that Subway's bread has too much sugar in it to be called bread. And Bitcoin jumped as much as 14% today to a 2-week high. All it took was a name drop from Tesla CEO Elon Musk.
When Elon Musk tweets, people trade. Bitcoin jumped as much as 14% on early Friday, hitting a 2-week high. Fueling the buying, the Tesla CEO simply wrote #Bitcoin in his bio on the Twitter site. It's not the first time he has broached the subject. In a Twitter exchange with a Bitcoin advocate last month, he asked about the possibility of converting large transactions of Tesla's balance sheet into that digital currency. Musk has a record of making comments on Twitter that move the markets. Nearly 44 million users follow the billionaire entrepreneur. On Thursday, shares of Polish games producer CD Projekt rocketed higher after Musk posted a tweet expressing his admiration for its video game Cyberpunk 2077, writing, "The aesthetics of Cyberpunk are incredible, by the way." And 3 days ago, GameStop surged 50% after Musk tweeted "GameStonk," along with a link to the Reddit Wall Street Bets chat room. Stonks is internet slang for stocks, And in that forum, GameStop supporters affectionately refer to him as Papa Musk.
An agricultural technology startup in Kentucky is changing the way we grow crops, with an emphasis on sustainability and clean eating.
This agricultural tech startup is building massive indoor farms to change the way we feed ourselves, and it just harvested its first chemical-free crop. App Harvest beefsteak tomatoes and tomatoes on the vine are chemical pesticide-free, non-GMO, and grown with 100% rainwater in a controlled environment.
We're degrading our soils to a point that we're not going to have a choice. So we plan on, when all's said and done, growing just about all fruit and vegetables in a controlled environment here at App Harvest. But the big picture thesis is that's where agriculture as a whole is moving.
The 60-acre facility in Morehead, Kentucky is one of the largest climate-controlled indoor farms in the U.S. It's designed to use 90% less water with yields up to 30 times higher than traditional open-field agriculture on the same amount of land.
It's a totally different way of looking at agriculture. We're in this time where we talk about essential workers in this world. In the middle of COVID, the essential workers putting our food on our table, those same essential workers deserve to have a living wage and be paid fairly.
The company says it's mission-driven, prioritizing environmental, social, and corporate governance, and it's preparing to list publicly.
So being a public benefit corporation and a B Corp, we're going to be one of the few companies listed on a public exchange, NASDAQ, that it has both.
App Harvest has 2 more farms currently under construction and plans to open 12 by 2025.
Coming up, a new visa for Hong Kongers to permanently settle in the UK is launching. But China says it will not recognize their British overseas national passport as a travel document. And the UK will have the world's first airport for flying cars with passenger-carrying drones. Find out more after the break.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritan green vegetable omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
Over to Europe. Up to 3 million Hong Kongers will have a chance to settle in the UK from this coming Sunday. The UK says it won't look the other way amid a row with China. NTD UK's Neil Woodrow will bring us more news from Europe.
Hello and welcome. A new visa scheme launching on Sunday allows up to 3 million Hong Kong residents and their close family members the chance to settle in the UK. But earlier, Beijing criticised the scheme, saying the British documents are not valid identification in China. Here's NTD's Trevor Piper with the details.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the UK is standing up for freedom and autonomy by offering a path to citizenship to Hong Kong residents. From Sunday, Hong Kongers with British National Overseas or BNO passports can apply to settle in the UK. It's in response to Beijing's harsh national security law imposed in Hong Kong. In what's seen as a largely symbolic move, Beijing now says it will no longer recognise BNO passports as a valid travel document. In an interview with the Epoch Times UK, Simon Cheng, a former British consulate worker who was tortured in China and the first BNO passport holder to be granted political asylum in the UK, says Beijing's comments won't have much effect.
It's just like a theatrical gesture, I would say. No any real meaning to most of the BNO citizens. Even I would say it would be relief because that is the mildest reaction of China they would do.
Also speaking to Epoch Times UK, BNO passport holder and Cantonese teacher Maggie Wong says there won't be a direct impact.
The most important identity document that allows you to come or go from Hong Kong is the ID card. So even though you can't use your BNO to leave Hong Kong or to arrive at Hong Kong, you can still use your Hong Kong passport.
The UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office says it's disappointed but not surprised by the Chinese decision to not recognise BNO passports. It added it looked forward to welcoming people from Hong Kong who wish to settle in the UK. While up to 3 million Hong Kong residents and their dependents can apply for the scheme, it's not clear exactly how many people will do so. Chief Executive of Hong Kong Watch, Benedict Rogers, believes Hong Kongers who do come will bring benefits to the UK in the long run.
I want Hong Kong to remain to be the free city that it was until relatively recently. But given the situation in Hong Kong, I hope that those who want to leave can find that new life in the free world. But it's also a policy that in the long run will benefit Britain.
The government estimates about 150,000 to 300,000 may apply for the visa over the next year or two. Trevor Piper, NTD News.
The European Union's medicines regulator approves the AstraZeneca and Oxford University COVID-19 vaccine for people over 18 years old. It's the third vaccine to get the green light from the EU. The European Medicines Agency says the vaccine shows an efficacy of around 60% in trials, well below the 95% by already authorised COVID-19 vaccines. The EU urgently needs more shots to speed up its vaccination, with major suppliers such as AstraZeneca, Pfizer and Moderna all facing difficulties in delivering promised supplies. A doctor in the south of France is calling for more supplies of the right syringes and needles for the COVID-19 vaccine. He says it will allow them to vaccinate 20% more people. Joanna Conway has more.
Geriatric doctor Laurent Figon says he is having to improvise as he gives jabs to care home residents and health staff, and he needs the right needles and syringes now.
Because with these syringes you can get 6 doses per vial. That means you can vaccinate 20% more people, and that's considerable.
Figon says to get 6 full doses from the BioNTech and Pfizer vaccine vials requires needles that are both thin enough to minimise waste and long enough to deliver the jab into the recipient's shoulder muscle.
The piston goes into the end of the syringe and then empties it. Okay, do you see it?
Similar shortages are cropping up elsewhere in Europe, worsening the EU's vaccination efforts, which are criticised for its late approval of the shot and production delay warnings.
It's logistics. There you go. We often joke among us doctors that we should have entrusted the vaccination campaign to the leaders of Amazon.
The EU is pressing Pfizer and BioNTech to deliver more of the low dead space needles. BioNTech says it has procured 50 million needles, while the EU has ordered up to 600 million doses of its vaccine. Joanna Conway, NTD News.
A father suffering from an Alzheimer-like illness is eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine, but his daughter won't sign the consent form saying she doesn't want her father to be a guinea pig. NTD's El Rose tells us their story.
86-year-old Claude Garbo frequently fails to recognise his daughter and struggles to talk, so he's unable to convey if he wants to take the CCP virus vaccine. His daughter, Fabienne, has decided for him.
Why inject him with a vaccine on which we don't know a lot yet and could also give him other side effects? And when I say side effects, these could be serious ones.
According to a care home federation, refusal rates in nursing homes are at about 10%. Fabienne says she has little faith in mainstream medical establishments that fearmongered in the past and are close to pharmaceutical companies. But that doesn't mean she's not careful.
We are careful when we go to see him. The team of care workers that takes care of him protects him. In any case, we'll have to continue practicing social distancing.
Vaccine supporters say the jab will allow them to socialise with others and be hugged by loved ones again. Earl Rhodes, NTD News.
The UK bans direct passenger flights from the United Arab Emirates, or UAE, shutting down the world's busiest international airline route from Dubai to London. The UAE is the most popular long-haul destination for British people, with over 190,000 scheduled seats in January. Besides the UAE, the UK is also banning flights from 2 African countries, meaning travel is now banned from 33 countries. Only British, Irish and third country nationals with residence are allowed entry. The news is a blow to countries using the UAE for transit, such as Australia. Flying cars and a small airport for air taxis. That's what you will find in a central English city later this year. NTD's Adi Aitken has more.
Urban Airport, a British-based startup, has partnered with car giant Hyundai to develop an airport for flying cars in the central English city of Coventry. This will be the world's first and fully operational urban airport.
Yeah, and that's really exciting because Coventry is a city centre location. So it's a real urban location, and it's well connected by road, pedestrian connectivity, but also rails.
From November, visitors will be able to witness a flying car airport, a passenger carrying drone, and an operational electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicle on the landing pad.
You know, there's a lot of talk about air taxis and flying cars, and there's been a huge amount of investment that's gone into those vehicle programs. But what's been missing so far is the piece that will unlock the value of those programs, and that's the infrastructure.
Urban Airport won a $1.65 million government grant to help fund the temporary installation of the airport in Coventry city centre. Eddie Aiken, NTD News.
Mountain biker Danny Macaskill is used to travelling the world to find new sources of adrenaline rushes, but the pandemic has allowed him to discover thrills much closer to home. Macaskill climbs the peak with his bike on his back, reaches the summit and starts his ride. Born and raised on the Isle of Skye, he tackles its massive slope known as the Dub Slabs that are angled between 40 and 60 degrees. Popular with climbers, this remote area is only accessible by boat. The breathtaking panoramic view makes all the effort worthwhile. With bravery and skill, he arrives safely at his destination.
Oh, that was pretty scary. Oh, incredible.
That's all for now. Back to New York.
And still to come, unlikely duo Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart are teaming up again. This time it's in preparation for the famed Puppy Bowl.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
If you like puppies, Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart, then you're going to love Super Bowl Sunday. The two friends will co-host the 2021 Puppy Bowl, and their own dogs will be there too. To pre-game, the rapper and culinary icon will hold competitions to create the perfect party snack and a Puppy Bowl-themed cocktail. Snoop and Martha will sport orange and blue jerseys for Team Rough and Team Fluff. The Puppy Bowl is meant to mimic a football game, with puppies playing inside a small stadium. All of them come from shelters, and the event helps spread adoption awareness. The Puppy Bowl pregame show will air before the Super Bowl on February 7th on Animal Planet. It will also stream on Discovery Plus. And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.
Hi, we're happy to announce that you can also catch us on cable TV now. Millions of households already choose us as one of their trusted news sources, and you can too. You can watch us in Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York, and many other cities as well. And if your system doesn't carry NTD yet, you can just give them a quick call and request NTD on your cable provider. Thank you for watching. See you next time.